All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And today, guys, this has been a long time in the making. And I knew this was destiny. This was destiny because basically in 2000, my family moved to the one street in probably the world called Mojo, right? Mojo Place. You can see if you're subscribed to our email list. And it says down the bottom, my parents' place was Mojo Place. And so when I heard about this guy called the Mojo Master, and I was getting told, you got to get this Mojo Master on your show. You got to get him on the Ultimate Man Summit. I was like, who is this guy? And this guy, his name's Michael Johnson. And he blows my mind. When I read about his work, when I saw his videos, he's really helping people, helping humans really break through their behaviors, really empower them so that they can actually achieve the most that they actually have within their own potential. He's the CEO of the Mojo Master. He's the founder. He crushes it. He crushes it and helps people crush through their limiting beliefs. And I'm excited to have him on the show. So guys, please welcome Michael to the show. Michael, good to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be on here and I'm excited.
Oh man, not as excited as me, man. Finally, I can tell people where I used to live, and that's awesome, man. And so, Michael,
I would have sent you like $100 just to steal the street sign and send it back.
Yeah, you'd be like, Richard, can I just have your mailing address down there?
Yeah, that would look wicked above like our house, Mojo Place.
Oh man, I get laughed at, man. Whenever I used to tell people, they're like, go to the RTA, like, hey, okay, so where do you live? Mojo Place. And she looks up, she's like, huh? Really? How do you spell that? Like, come on, Mojo ain't that hard, right?
I have an email address, which is the mojomaster.com.au, and then everyone when they look at it, they're like, "What is that?" And I see their mind-boggling, like, "Do we make porn or like what sort of weird shit are you doing there?" Like that, and they ask with such a serious face, and I'm like, "It's just I'm a coach. That's what I do." Yeah, but it's always a conversation starter.
Oh, of course, man. And people remember you, right? And this Michael guy's like, I'm just a coach, but you're more than that, Michael. But for the people who haven't heard about you and your work, man, could you share more about how you got started and how you help people?
Yeah, cool. So it's a bit of a long story, but, I'll go back right from a really young age. I grew up with really young parents. And so I used to get taken to a lot of parties and things like that. And so I grew up from a really young age watching human behavior. And I've always been one of those people I like people watching. So I live at the beach, so I just sit there. I'm not like one of those creepy weird dudes that just check people out, but I'm like, I love watching human behavior and how people interact with certain things. So I've always been like that ever since I was really, really young. Mm-hmm. So I used to go to parties and I wondered, why someone could rock up in, an amazing looking car and be well dressed, and they'd get out, people would run from them, like get away from them. And then other people would rock up in these old beat up cars and they'd get out and their clothes would look like shit. And they'd come into the party and people just come around and they're high-fiving and shaking hands. And I'm like, this person's got something. What is it? But then I would see other people would rock up in old beat up cars as well. And people would run. And then other people rock up in nice cars with nice clothes. And people would gather around them. So I knew that it wasn't the money side of things or the way that they looked or the cars that they had. There was something more to it. Now, then from there, when I went to school, I was one of those kids at school who I was told that I was dyslexic. I was put in special classes. I supposedly had ADD, which you can probably tell that's one of the things that I'm just mental all the time. Yeah. But that's how I am. Like, I think most really highly successful entrepreneurs who I know are just crazy all the time anyway, because you've got to be sort of slightly mental to do this stuff. So anyway, I was always punished at school because I could never get the good grades. And my mum, on my mum's side of the family, all her brothers and sisters went to university, but she fell pregnant with me at 17. So, she never went to university. So I think that became her thing, was that she wanted me to go to uni. Yeah. And there was no way I was going to uni. I was just, I was lucky to pass. I almost failed finger painting in reception. So it just wasn't going to happen. And at 15, I ended up getting expelled from school. And in all honesty, I just felt like I was the biggest piece of shit on the planet. I thought I was going to get nowhere in life. I just had all of these expectations from everybody else around me that were just crushing me. And at that point in time, I considered taking my own life because I just thought, what's the point? I'm not going to get anywhere. I'm not going to be anything. But at that point in time, there was a few things that were going on, and the reason why I didn't go through with it was because I was thinking of my best mate and the guilt that he would feel. And I was one of those kids as well at school who I was friendly with everybody, but I didn't really have a friendship circle, like a cliquey friendship group. And I was always inquisitive. Like I always used to ask heaps of questions. But the reason why I was in trouble at school was because I was creative enough to realize that things either work out there in the real world or they don't. It's really that simple. And so what I was being taught, I'm sitting there and I'm going, how does this shit help me in life? And that's still the way that I live. Like I work with scientists all the time who go, but this is science. Science proves this. And I go, yeah, but that's all cool in a laboratory. But what happens when you're out there in the real world where there's a billion possibilities that could happen? That shit doesn't work. And they're like, yeah, but that's not what science says. And I'm like, fuck your science, because it doesn't work out there. You know, I'm a very practical person. Either you have a result or you have excuses. It's one of the two things. You can't have both.
Yep.
And so I'm very results driven, always have been. So, you know, growing up, going from that, I ended up going back to school and I became a diesel mechanic because I thought if I want to learn how things work, and I've always been really inquisitive about how things work, I thought I'm not smart enough to go to university, but what I can do is I can get a trade, and I want to work in a trade where they have advanced technology so that I can learn that part of it. And you know, that's something that I enjoy. While I was doing that though, I realized that most people, it was the start of the mining boom in South Australia. A lot of people were going up to the mines and making tons of money, but they were coming back and they were miserable. And I could see these bad patterns that were developing where they'd go away to the mines where they got promised that they would make all this money and that they were going to set themselves up for life. But when they were up there, they'd come back and spend all their money because they were miserable and they thought that buying shit was making them happy. But because of that, it trapped them for another year, which then they would spend all that money and then they were back there for another year. So it kept going, and I watched depression rates climb, anxiety rates climb, suicide rates climb. And I just thought, you know, I don't really want to be part of this. And the only place that ever made me feel good about myself, because I was picked on quite a lot at school, I had bright red hair growing up, so you can't see it now, like it's a lot darker. But I was like a full-blown ranger when I was a kid, so I had like white pasty skin and red hair and freckles. And so the only place that ever made me feel good was going to the gym. And so I thought, you know, maybe there's something in it. Maybe I can create a career out of this. And so I started studying after hours to become a personal trainer, which back then was a year and a half of after hours study. So I'd work like 10 to 12 hours a day and then go and study at night time.
Wow.
Now, when I started doing that, I was a straight A student, and I realized that when I'm really passionate about something, when I love something, I just dive deep into it. And so I was really good at, you know, studying that stuff. And I used to read books after hours. I'd never read a book through school. I used to read the first 3 or 4 chapters and read the last 3 or 4 and just make the rest of this shit up and pretend that I'd read the whole book. Yeah. So I started getting into studying and learning. And then I think I was about 20 when I got a phone call that my best mate was in hospital. He was the guy who was the reason why I didn't commit suicide. And when I got there, he'd informed me that his 3-year-old niece was killed in a car crash and he was in the passenger seat and his older sister was driving. And I just remember being at the funeral and watching this little white coffin going into the ground going, how can life just go like that? Like you hear one second and you're gone the next. And so for me, that made me ask myself a lot of questions. Now, I went through school for 13 years and never once did I ever think about what my life was about and who I was as an individual. I was taught how I needed to behave and how I needed to act in order to be successful as far as society terms it, and in order to make other people happy. But no one actually taught me how to be happy within myself and even to question who I was as a person and what made me unique. And so at the funeral, these questions popped into my head, and it was, what's the purpose of your life? Why do you exist? Why are you here? How are you going to be remembered when you're not here? And what makes you great as an individual? Now, I've never even thought about that. But anyway, I ended up getting signed off my apprenticeship about 6 months to a year later. And I walked into the boss's office and I said, I can't be here. I can't do this anymore. And he said, Michael, what are you going to go do? Yeah. And I said, I don't know. It's not this. And he said, Michael, don't end up like the rest of these fuckers. Go and do what you love. And so I packed up my toolbox. We were sitting in the same position at my mum and dad's house, 12 years later. And from there, I walked into the gym and I started out as a personal trainer. And within 6 months, I'd won awards as a trainer and I got mentors and I was just learning. I was just in this, I was just so excited about learning and helping people. And I could really start to see that I could change the lives of others or inspire them to change. And so I won a whole heap of awards. I won a national award as well. And then from there, I studied kinesiology and I guess you could call it nutritional medicine as well. And then from there, I worked in a rehab center working with doctors and physios. This was about 6 years I was a PT and then went out and worked in a rehab center. And I owned a studio in that in a medical center, And when I was there, I realized that the nutritionists hated the naturopaths and the naturopaths hated the nutritionists. The physios hated the chiros and the chiros hated the physios and the doctors hated everybody. And the people who suffered were the clients. So I worked there for 2 years and then I got out. But while I was there, I started realizing that most people know what to do in life. They just don't do it. So, I would talk to people and I'd say, look, you need to eat healthy food. And they go, I know. And I go, well, why are we doing it? you need to go and exercise every day. Like, go and just move. Oh, I know. And I go, why don't you do it? And then I realized that the missing link was in here. Mm-hmm. So I started studying NLP, and then that sort of led me into a whole bunch of questions that I couldn't answer. So I started studying and working with some psychologists.
Yep.
Then from there, I ended up getting into some quantum theory and just started going from there. Now, I've spent about $1 million on studying. My office is just, you probably can't see it. I don't want to turn the computer around because it might, you can sort of see. But my whole office is just surrounded by books.
Yeah.
Because I love learning. And I think ever since I was really young, when I look back now, no one ever really gave me the self-belief. Like, no one ever said to me, Michael, you can be anything. Mm-hmm. And so now the thing that I love more than anything is just giving people the self-belief to go and be themselves. And I've studied lots of major religion and lots of major philosophies, and they all come back to 3 big things. And one of the big main things that they teach is that you need to love everybody. But then that brings up a question, which is, how do I love myself? Because you can't love others until you love yourself.
Yes.
But then how can you love yourself when you don't know who you are? So it comes down to knowing thyself. And so that's what really led me on this journey, is how do I teach people how to know who they are so they can be the best version of themselves that they can be, inspire them, but not just inspire them, because that, especially motivation, it never lasts. So how do we inspire them? But how do we make sure that they own who they are and stop worrying about what other people think? Stop trying to be everything for everybody else and just go and do your thing out in the world. Because I think when you're inspired, you inspire other people to be inspiring as well. And that's how we slowly start to change the world one person at a time. So that's what I do these days, is I get to work with, as I spoke to you before, I was sitting with Chris Hooper, who's a good friend of mine, and he's got one of the fastest growing accounting firms in the world. And, I get to hang around wild people who are doing cool shit all the time. One of my clients has almost $1 billion worth of development. So most of my clients, my private clients these days, are multimillionaires or professional athletes. Because what they want is to be the best version of themselves that they can be, but also they don't want the fluff and all that sort of crap. Because I think sometimes, especially in the personal development industry, there can be a lot of fluff and a lot of good theories, but theories don't necessarily work. The only thing I care about is results. And I think that's a balance between science, because science can offer some good insight, and the spirituality, philosophy can offer some good insight as well. But when they get too out there, they both end up crazy and they fight against each other. Instead of, when you're centered, you realize that they actually both have good information that can help you to, really track fast. And that's how I built the Mojo Master. And last year alone, we grew 700% financially last year. So, we're in a rapid growing business, and, it really comes down to your mindset.
Oh, man, I love it, man. I love it. And that's one of the key areas we talk about here on the show often here, Michael. And I want to ask you this question here. I mean, like, you talk about, like, getting to know yourself. And it seems like in your story, in your journey, you've gone through multiple versions of probably what I call, like, peeling back the layers, right? It's like you're an onion. You're just peeling over the layers until you get to the core. And let me ask you this, man. I mean, like, how do you know, Michael, if this is your core or if there's something inside of that as well? Because, like, for me, for example, right, I went through all of Harv Eker's stuff, Tony Robbins stuff, and I bought into this dream. And I'm sure you're familiar with this as well. It's like, I bought into this dream of, I just want to be a star. I want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be inspirational. I want to be Asian Tony Robbins. That's what I wanted to be, right? And that's why I moved up and went over to Singapore. And then literally in like 2 weeks while I was here, my coach just stopped me. He's like, is this really what you want to do? If I gave you all the money in the world, Richard, what would you do every day? Right? Your family's taken care of. You travel anywhere, live anywhere you want. What would you do every day? And inside me, Michael, that's when it triggered. I opened up another layer, and I'm like, man, I don't think I would train. I would speak for free every day, because it's not what I want. But what I want to do is I want to be the behind the scenes guy, the guy who shines a spotlight on people like you, bro, right? And make you shine brighter than ever before. And I want to ask you, man, it's like, how was your journey going through that phase, these phases? And do you think there's more to come? Do you think there's more to come where you just continue to, like, slightly pivot more and more?
Yeah, that's a wicked question. It's actually the first interview that I've done where I've actually been asked that question. So that's wicked. It's a wild question. And I think we only know who we are in the moment. When you look at neuroscience, there is no past and there is no future. What that is we have past memories. So memories are only a perception, because our brain can only take in part information. If you just think about it, our eyes are light sensing devices, so they can only take in light. Yet I see you sitting across from me. So I say, I can see Richard sitting there. But the truth is I can't see shit. All I'm seeing is light that goes through my eyes, and my brain puts that information together.
Yep.
So our human experience is based on our own perceptions. That's why some people walk around, they go, see, the world's a shit place, can't trust anyone, there's no money in the world, everything's fucked, you know, the world's falling apart. And other people wake up in the morning, they're like, this place is wild, like I'm on the best journey ever. And they both have access to it. It's just how our brain filters that information is the key thing, based on our perceptions, our past experiences, you know, or the people who we hang around. There's a whole bunch of different things that are going on there. You know, in neuroscience, they say that reality is just a direct reflection of the mind. So when I work with a person and they tell me their story, I already know what's going on inside their head. It's really simple because reality is a direct reflection of their own thinking. That's it. So if someone's broken, someone's struggling and so on, that's just their mind. It's really that simple. I mean, we can complicate the shit out of them. I can charge, you know, 50 times more to make it seem more simple and like, you know, people need me. But the truth is that it's just our mind, and the more tools we have and the more aware we are, the easier it is. But I think that, you know, when we look at the past, there's different past versions of me. And then, you know, I don't know who the future version is. The only thing that I know is that every time we can, you know, in psychology, they talk about having past memories, but we can actually create future memories where when we know who we are based on our value systems and based on our purpose, which is a lot of the stuff that I teach, is that when you're clear about your purpose, your real true core values and values, most people mistake values as being, you know, social norms or social ideals. Like when I say, look, what are your values? And someone says to me something like, oh, well, trust is important to me. Trust isn't a fucking value, because everyone wakes up in the morning and goes, do you know what? I think one of my highest values is being not trustworthy. You know, everyone thinks that they're trustworthy. Like, you know, when you look at dudes in the hood who are in jail, and they say things like, you know, trust is important in their inner circles, yet they'll kill each other over it. So if someone misbreaks trust, like mafia, they'll kill each other over a breaking trust. But they still see themselves as being trustworthy, even though they kill people. So those social idealisms everybody has, like everyone wants to be loved, we want to be accepted, we all base our relationships based on trust. So they're all just normal. It's the other things like, what are we really driven by? So when we look at that, my brain has a filtering system. My highest value is learning. So when I'm sitting there with a person, if I'm listening to someone who I find fascinating, I'm learning from them. I find that really enjoyable. Also, I find it really enjoyable where I can teach, like this conversation here. I'm teaching, so I find this really, really enjoyable. When I sit with someone, though, and they start talking about what's happening on television and drama and maybe even sports, in the back of my brain, something just goes, why the fuck are we even talking about this shit? Like, I really don't care. And so I don't find those relationships enjoyable, but that's because the filtration system in my brain is naturally telling me what I'm supposed to do in life. Now, we can try and hide from that, which a lot of people do. You know, I have heaps of mums and dads who come to my events, and when they find out that their kids aren't their highest value, it sets them free. Because, you know, when we're inspired, we allow others to be inspiring. But that doesn't mean that everyone believes what we believe and fit into our value system.
Yes.
You know, my sister, her highest value is her kids. So she puts her kids first. I put my study first over everything else. And after that, my teaching. So if I can keep learning, I can keep teaching. And then my third highest value is wealth creation. So those three things, actually my top 10 values, I pretty much live every day in some way, shape or form. And the more that I do that, the more it makes me a greater version of myself, because what else would I do? This is what I love. When someone says I have to, you know, I should, that's saying that they're living someone else's value system and they don't understand how it relates to the importance of their life. And that's why a lot of people, you know, they work a 9-to-5 job, they come home, they go, oh, I'm so tired. I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I can work until midnight for weeks on end. And that's just what I do. Like there's no special formula. It's just when I get clear with who I am, it inspires me, it gives me energy. Like now you can probably tell the amount of energy that I have talking, because I just love this stuff. During my events, I don't get tired. I don't feel like eating food. I just go. Whereas when I have to sit down and look at finances in my business and stuff like that, I start getting a bit tired. I get frustrated with things. And it's because it's not my highest value. But I understand how important that is to me living my values. So I see it as being important, but it's not the reason why I do what I do. Does that sort of make sense? So what I do is, because I've got a clear purpose in life and I'm very certain about who I am and I know my order of values, I just make sure I live that every day. but also I create a vision of the future, which we call a mission. And that mission is like a snapshot into the future that reads about all the areas of my life and how they relate into who I am as a person, which then the more that I rehearse that, the more I'm actually training my brain with a future memory. So if neuroscientists took a snapshot of my brain or put me under EEG or, whatever tool or mechanism that they're using, and they had a look at it, my brain would look like the future's already happened. And that's the way that we want it to. That's why visualization is so important. And working with a lot of very high achievers, athletes or, some of the clients that I have who, some of them are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, those people use visualization a lot. They just don't talk about it because it's not generally spoken about in the business community. But they're not only just amazing high achievers, but they're high achievers who are fulfilled as well. There are lots of high achievers out there who still hate life, hate doing what they do, and they hope that one day they can retire or sell their company and get the fuck out. It's stuff like that that's not a fulfilling life. Like, you could die tomorrow. And something I say at all my events is that at the end of every day, we're a day closer to death, whether we like it or not. I'm not sure when I'm going to die, but I know that at the end of today, I'm closer to it. So, when we look at that, we need to take the fact that we're alive and living very, very, very seriously. Now, the average person doesn't. They don't even think about that. And that's why they do things that they dislike on the average day, or they do things that don't fulfill them long term, because they just do it because they think they have to. But what they'll do is that those same people will take the shit that happens to them in life way too seriously. So something 30 years ago that happened, they'll focus on every day and they go, see, my life shit because of that thing 30 years ago, or that thing, you can't trust people because of all this stuff. So they take the things that happen to them way too seriously, and they don't take the fact that life can go just like that seriously enough. When you flip that the other way around, that's when you really start to live up to your own expectations in life. And, I started a lot of my events asking that question. Are you living up to your own expectations? And for the average person, they're not. And that's a concern. That should be a concern.
It's like a formula that I know we have a written up on our board. It's basically what was it? Your reality minus your expectations equals your happiness.
Yeah, but we've got to be careful as well, because see, this is why I got into. I moved away from positive psychology, because if you actually have a look at the movement of positive psychology, there's almost a direct increase in depression rates with the movement of positive psychology. So as we become more aware of that we should be positive all the time, depression rates have actually soared, because a lot of people think that when they're unhappy or when they're in a negative mindset, that's a bad thing. And because of that, they go, shit, why am I negative? Like, what bad's going on? Like, what am I doing wrong? Is it me? And like, my whole life's fucked now. And they keep asking really bad questions, and it ends up in a downhill spiral. The truth is that in human psychology and human biology and physiology are probably the only sciences that there can be a positive charge without a negative charge. Whereas when you go to physics or mathematics, one side of an equation in mathematics has to be directly proportional to the other side. 2 plus 2 equals 4. They balance each other out. Now, in human psychology, they can see that there's a negative, but they don't talk about that that's directly proportional to the positive that's somewhere in their life. And if you just think about it, if ever you've put yourself up on a pedestal and you're telling me a story and you go, oh, I did this amazing, amazing thing, and you overinflate yourself, in that moment, you get an instant gut reaction on the inside, which makes you feel bad about it. And that's because the balancing mechanism is happening at that same time. A lot of positive thinking people, and this is what happened. I was going to a lot of events like some of the people that you mentioned before. And because when I grew up, I was so negative, I thought that the best thing would be to become a positive person, because that's how humans consistently think. They're like, well, if I just do the opposite, it's better. But it's not. You can be out of balance on one side and be out of balance on the other side. And you see heaps of people that go to those events who are way out of balance. They run around, they're like, whoa, that's fucking amazing. Ah! And then like 2 weeks later, they feel like shit again. And it's just because they're out of balance the other way. So when we come back into balance, we realize that both positives and negatives are a good thing. And they can be a bad thing. It just depends on how you perceive them. I know that if I just do what I love, so when you look at different studies around love is the balance of complementary opposites. So when someone says, like for me, my business, I love my business, but my business is both my dream and also my nightmare at the same time. I lose sleep over business all the time, but it's also a dream. Like, I love it. Today I get to hang out with a super high achiever and have coffee with him at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. because I can. But other times I sit up until 2 o'clock in the morning working, and then I'm back up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing work, and it becomes a nightmare. So the dream and the nightmare are the balance. The center point between those two is called love. So when someone says, I love going to the gym, I love exercising, I love working, I love my business, I love my partner in a relationship, what they're really saying is that I'm balanced between both the dream and the nightmare, the positive and the negative, the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, the challenge and the support. All of those things are happening at exactly the same time. It's just our human perception only picks up half of that. So positive thinking people are like, I'm so positive on the outside, but on the inside, a lot of positive thinking people can never live up to their own expectations. So they feel a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of maybe anger towards themselves. There's a lot of judgment towards themselves as well. I saw that as was a consistent. But then I used to see, and I used to do it as well, I'd walk up to people who are down all the time. I'm like, why are you so miserable? And they go, I'm not miserable. And you go, of course you are. And they go, I'm not miserable. And you're like, of course you are. You complain all the time. They're like, you sound like you're miserable now. And I'd go like, fuck you, because what the perception of others is just our perception. The individual has a different experience than a perception. So some people look like they've got their shit together, but on the inside, they're falling apart. Some people are really positive on the outside, but on the inside, they're full of guilt and resentment and shame and, mistrust and all of those things. So it really comes down to the balance between the two. I'm both positive and negative. I have good days, I have bad days. I have good minutes, I have bad minutes. Like, it just depends on the moment. But what I do know is if I keep doing what I love, that's where I want to be sitting at, and I'll take both the good and the bad with those things. I wouldn't do anything else.
Oh, man. Like, that's just crazy, Michael. I mean, the way it works is, and this is something new that you shared with me. I've never heard about this before, right? That love is the balance between the good and the bad. And talk us through this. I mean, like, now that we understand that is the middle point, that's where we need to be. How is it that we can then make sure that we ride through the negative, ride through the bad times, ride through the tough times? How would we do that the easiest?
Okay, cool. It's a really good question. I think the first thing is that in order to know thyself, you need to look at what is my purpose first. So you've got to get clear on your purpose and then your values and the value order, because that's important, because your brain naturally makes decisions based on that order. Like for me, my relationship with my fiance, she's an amazing person that I love hanging around. But when I hang around her and my highest values aren't fulfilled, like if I feel like I'm not smart enough or I'm not learning enough, and then I'm not teaching quite regularly, and I'm not generating or not creating wealth, and not running my business isn't running well, then even when I'm with her, I still disconnect from her because my brain is elsewhere. I'm thinking about other things. Yep. So we need to know how our brain naturally funnels information through it based on our true values. And a lot of courses teach you that you can change your values. But my question is, whose values are you changing them to if you're not owning your own values? I think the idea of changing your values is stupid, because all you're trying to be is somebody else because you think that they've got something better than you. But that's only because you can see the dream without seeing the actual nightmare that they're living as well. And so it's a stupid idea. Once you do that, then you create a mission. And then after that, you get clear with your goals. And your goals need to be balanced in all areas of life. Because I see a lot of business people who are amazing with their business and finances, but they're really bad with their health, or they're really bad in an intimate relationship. Now, that's all good. So it's good to make $1 million. But what happens when your wife leaves you? Now she just took half of everything. So you actually lost half of that money. So you've worked your ass off in order to create that, but you just lost half. Why not put in half that effort and half that energy and give it to your wife and make sure that they're happy, so that then you both things grow together? And I think that that's a really important thing that most people don't think about. When your health turns to shit, I know that when I'm healthy, my knowledge grows, my business grows, I feel great, I can work long hours. But when my health goes bad, that's an issue. So we need to be balanced in all those areas. And goal setting only comes when we're clear about who we are. A lot of courses teach you how to goal set, but when you goal set, it's normally about proving your worth to others because you don't know who you are. And the only reason why we need to prove ourselves to others is because we haven't accepted who we are yet. We're trying to hide part of ourselves and go, when I can show everyone else that I'm successful or that I'm happy or all of that stuff, then I'll be accepted. But the truth is, you haven't accepted yourself. When you accept yourself, you realize that everyone just does their own thing anyway. And to be honest, most people actually don't give a shit about you, who you are, what you do. They're more worried about their own lives anyway. Yep. So just go and do your thing. That's, I talk about that all the time. Just go and do your thing. And the most successful people in the world will say that. Just go and do your thing. Be yourself. Do what you love. And that's what it comes down to, because only in that place where you take on both the dream and the nightmare, the challenge and the support. Like the more attention I get, the more criticism I get.
Yes.
Every time I'm criticized though by someone, my community comes and attacks them, and I'm like, I didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
Because it's the challenge and the support that's happening together. You know, I'm getting criticized more than I ever have before, but I'm also being supported more than I ever have before. If it's not what you love, it will crush you. And that's why people play small, because they're afraid that someone's going to say something bad about them, or, you know, but it's everyone's just doing their own thing. You know, not everybody agrees with, you know, my values, and I really don't care about that. What I care about is, am I doing what I love? There are lots of people out there who love what I do, and there are lots of people out there who disagree with it. And really, I couldn't give a toss, as long as at the end of the day, when I go to bed, my own head is cool and clear and calm about who I am as an individual. And I know that what my intention is the right thing. And that's the main thing, is that it all comes down to intention. So I guess, did that answer the question? Because I guess a lot of courses talk about goal setting and achieving at a high level and pushing it. But the truth is, actually, here's a quote that I have on my wall. And I don't know whether you can read it, but it says, you can't control the outcome. You can only control the work you put in. And that's really important, because it's not about achieving the goal. It's about every day rocking up and being and doing the best that you can each and every day. And how are you going to do that if you're not fulfilled, if you're not loving what you do? Because it's going to be all days of both, as I was talking to you about before. Yeah. Every day of mine is both a dream and a nightmare. Like some days the shit just hits the fan and things go bad. Mm-hmm. But I wake up the next day and I go, let's do this again. Like, let's just make it happen. So that's what it comes. If you do what you love, you'll keep rocking up like that. Whereas if not, you'll just start getting crushed, and you'll be thinking about, how do I make life easy? And the only time that people want ease and comfort is when they're actually trying to get away from pain. And that's the old, the old psychology model is based on pleasure and pain, good and bad, all of those sort of things. When you live in that model, it's very animalistic. It's not inspired. When you're inspired, you don't worry about both pleasure and pain, because you realize that they're the same thing. You get both pleasure and pain doing whatever you do.
Mm-hmm. Whoa, man, that last line there, that thing was like, whoa, that was good, man. That's good. And Michael, man, thank you. It pains me so much, man, that we got to start wrapping up the show here, because I'm just sitting here, I'm just like a sponge and absorbing this, man. I was like, this is awesome. This is awesome. But as we wrap up the show here, we're going to go to a few quick fire questions. And the first one I want to start with you, man, is the signature question we have is the time travel moment. If you could go back to any moment in your life, Michael, and talk to little Michael and give him a piece of advice, when would you go back to and what would you tell him?
I think when you know who you are, you become congruent about how important your past is to the person that you are today. Mm. And in all honesty, I wouldn't change a thing. Like, I was bullied at school all the time, and I wouldn't change that, because it made me very thick-skinned, very determined. It gave me a massive amount of self-belief, because no one else believed in me. I was the one who believed in me. So it gave me that courage to just be myself. So I would never change any of that sort of stuff. I'd never change my schooling years, because it taught me to think outside the square. A lot of my friends went on and they went to uni, and now they got a 9-to-5 job and they hate their life. And, they might make $100,000 a year, but they hate it. And here I am, doing my thing. So school was a very valuable thing for me. And it's not saying that school's good or bad. It wasn't my thing. And for some people it was, for some people it wasn't. So I really wouldn't change anything. But I think the number one piece of advice, if ever, I had to give a piece of advice to anyone, it would always be, just be yourself. That's all it comes down to. Because money doesn't make you happy. Money only gives you immediate gratification. And when we do that, studies in neuroscience show that it releases dopamine, and dopamine is what we get addicted to. And that's that like happiness addiction, or that addiction where people spend money that they don't have, and every time they do that, they're setting themselves up for more pain. And so they consistently go from the pleasure and the pain. They're looking for an easy, comfortable life, yet they want to live where they're making millions of dollars only because they can spend $1 million. And the thing is that you don't become rich by being a consumer. You become wealthy by being good with money, which means that you're good with saving, you're good with investing, you're good with that stuff, and you're not good with spending. Like that's really what it comes down to. Now, I live a good lifestyle, but I don't spend money that I don't have, and I always invest money first, and I always save it first. That's more important than actually buying shit. Because my best friend is Brad Smith, who's Global Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Brad was the youngest person in history to be an advisor to the Reserve Bank anywhere in the world. And Brad's a good friend of mine. And he said to me years ago, I'd prefer to be rich than look rich, and I prefer to be happy than look happy. And it's one of the greatest things. Like, you just got to be yourself, because unless you're yourself, the stuff outside of you doesn't make you anything more on the inside. It's the inside that reflects out. It's not the outside that reflects in. That's a superficial bullshit way of living. And that's how the average person lives. And that's why most people, especially in Australia, have a consumer mentality, because they think that the more shit that they buy, the happier that they're going to become. Yet then they end up with a house full of crap that's worth nothing, and their bank account's broke, and they're stressed out all the time working a job that they hate, waiting for retirement because they think that one day they're going to be happy, and that's bullshit. Happiness happens in the moment, because the only moment that exists is this moment. Like there is no such thing as a future. It's just an idea, and the past is a memory. So it's only now. That's it. So we've got to live that moment now.
Oh man, Michael, man, I'm just like, my mojo is blown, bro. Right, with what you're sharing here, it's just mind-boggling. And I just have one more question before we start finishing up. It's, you've obviously read a lot of books, even with your ADHD problem. Like, you were able to sit down and read books and research, which makes me question whether you really did have ADHD or not. But tell me about this, man. If there's one book that was an absolute must-read for anyone who's listening and watching this, what book would you recommend?
Cool. Two things. So I'm just going to talk about the ADHD. What will happen is there's something called attention deficit disorder, but everyone has an attention deficit disorder because we have an attention deficit disorder, just like we have an attention memory disorder with things that we don't value. So when someone, like when I go shopping with my partner, Jess, she'll go around the shops, and when we get home, she'll say, "Did you like those pillows that I pointed out?" And I go, "What?" And she goes, "Do you know those colored pillows? Like, remember the blue ones that I showed you?" And I'm like, "You what?" And she goes, "The pillows that I showed you." And I go, I can't even remember what you're talking about. But I can tell you, everywhere that I travel, I know where almost every bookstore is in every city, capital city that I travel to. Because for me, my brain picks up things that I value. So the things that we value, we're aware of. The things that we don't value, we become unaware of, which is called an attention deficit disorder. So even kids that I've worked with who have attention deficit disorder, the reason why they're diagnosed with that is because they're getting taught stuff that they don't relate or see it as helping them and their values. And so because of that, they might be really good at computer games. Now, my question is, if they had learning disorders, why can they play a computer game, lose at one level, then go back, play that whole other level again? Because they've memorized it, get to that level, and then keep pushing through. Because to them, the game is both their dream and their nightmare, but it's part of their values, so they love it, and they memorize that stuff. But what they don't memorize is they might not memorize stuff in school because they feel like that doesn't fit their value system, so they don't perceive it as being important to them. Some people are really good at school, but shit at maths, good at sports, but shit at maths. They memorize stuff. They just don't memorize the things that everyone else wants them to. And that's when we diagnose kids with ADD or ADHD. Everyone has an attention deficit disorder, but we also have an attention retention disorder as well, or order, where we naturally memorize things that are important to our values. And I remember sitting down with one of my friends who's worth $100 million, and we're sitting in a cafe, and he looked around, he's looking, and he goes, "Do you know, if they just did they'd increase their revenue by 30%. I went, "How the hell do you know that?" And he goes, "I just know." Because to him, making money, he just pulls it out the top of his head because it's part of his highest value. So he memorizes that shit. With me, Jeff always says to me, "How is it that you can remember statistics about like brain function and, statistics about human behavior?" And I go, "I don't know. I can read a book about human behavior and I can memorize lots of statistics and data. But you get me to read just a normal novel about whatever, and I won't memorize anything. I've tried it and it doesn't work." So it's attention deficit comes down to not living your values. That's all it is. And you'll find that the things that you don't remember are actually the things that you don't think fit your value system. That's why there are lots of people that I don't remember their names, but people who I'm interested in, who fit my value system, I'm always remember their name. That's why you remember people, like some people remember celebrities. I got no idea who celebrities are. Like Jess will say, "Oh, this person was in that movie." And I'm like, "How do you know this shit?" Because I don't know any celebrities really, like as in, mainstream celebrities. Yeah. But you talk about personal development, neuroscience, human behavior, high achievers, multimillionaires, billionaires, all of that stuff. I can give you statistics and data off the top of my head because I memorize that stuff, but I don't memorize other things. So both. The question that you asked though was books.
Yes. You got it. It's back on. Yep.
So look, I think books are a hard thing because I get asked this question a lot. The challenge that I have is that because I'm growing and evolving, the books that I used to like aren't the books that I like anymore. So at the moment, I'm reading a book called. Let me just grab it.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is the latest book that I'm reading at the moment, which is called Atomic Physics and Human Knowledge by Niels Bohr, who is a quantum physicist. So I've been reading a lot of books based on like deep quantum physics because I'm trying to create a greater understanding of how the brain works, from more of a physics standpoint than I'm a biological standpoint. So I'm putting together information and data about that for a lot of our courses. And now we've got our own coaching program as well called Neurolimbic Conditioning, which we're starting to roll that out at the moment. We've only rolled it out to our internal database. But I pretty much want to create the most knowledgeable and smartest coaches in the world. And I just don't agree with the old model of psychology and NLP and stuff like that. Some of the tools work, but most of them don't. They don't work long term because I see it a lot where, a smoker gives up smoking, but they take up eating. Yep. It's sort of, reframing. It doesn't really balance out the perceptions in the brain and balance everything out. What it does, it just flips one thing to another thing to another thing. Yep. And some people don't agree with that, and that's okay. It's just, I'm just looking at the results. They didn't work for me and a lot of my clients. There are some tools though that are really great, but I wanted to put together the science behind it. So I'm reading a lot of books like that, a lot of neuroscience books, but I mean, depends. A guy just asked me on my Snapchat. So I've got, I do the Minute with Mojo every day on Snapchat. And he said, like, what's a wicked book for wealth? And there's like 4 or 5 of them. So if I get asked specifics, I can point people in the right direction. But as a general question, like what books are great? It just depends, like in the moment. I used to read heaps of Tony Robbins stuff, but I think, that they're very basic. So for someone who's starting into that field, I think that stuff is fantastic. But then I think guys like Dr. Joe Dispenza and his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, is awesome. Then you can start to get into some more sort of like neuroscience stuff. Paul Chek's book, How to Eat, Move and Be Healthy, Speed Wealth by T. Harv Eker. There's so many books that I've read. It just depends like what specifically you want, it's...
You've already mentioned a few in them and I'm like, man, they're good books, man. I'm going to put them in the show notes. And so, Mike, as we wrap up the show here, I mean, if people want to connect with you and your work, where's the best place they should head to, mate?
Cool. So you can just go to themojomaster.com.au and just check out, we've got a new website going up at the moment. The old one's a little bit outdated, but you can check out what we do. Also, you can check out my podcast as well. So, my podcast went #1 on iTunes a while ago, but I just stopped that because it was just taking up too much time. But yeah, I mean, you can have a listen to some of the people that I interviewed as well and just get a general vibe. I think with my stuff, either people like what I do or they don't like what I do. It's one of those things. Like I like being myself. I tried to get into be the whole corporate speaker where I don't swear and I wear a business suit, and it just didn't go down. Like some days I wake up and I'll walk around all day in shorts and a tank top, and then other days like I'll come in and I'll sit in my office like dressed up nice and neat. I like being. I work on the beach, like we work from home, so all my staff come over to our house and they work and we're right on the beach. Nice. So, I like just being with cool people that just like doing cool shit in life and don't have like a preconceived idea about what we should be and how I should act and behave. It all comes down to who are they as a person and just be the best version that they can be. So, by checking that stuff out, you'll either know whether you like me or you don't like me, and that's cool as well. Like yeah,
because it's all love, man. It's all love, man. It's whether you love it or you don't love it, it's still love. And
that's it. So you can check out the website. Also, go to the Mojo Master 00 on Snapchat as well, and you can check out my Daily Minute with Mojo. Also, there's the Mojo Master Coach on Facebook as well. That's where I publish the most amount of content, almost on a daily basis. You can go check that out. I'm on Instagram as well, but I mean, it's Instagram, so I post like a few selfies of me in a bikini or something like that, but
Oh, I love it. We'll add them into the show notes as well. And so, Michael, man, this is an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we got to connect, man. And man, with what's in your head at the moment, it sounds like we got to get you bringing yourself back after you've read through even more of these books to bring in more information for us and our fans here, man.
Excellent. I'd love to. Anytime you want me back, just shoot me an invite. I'll be there.
We'll do, man. We'll do. It's okay.
Anyone who's listening in as well, like if you want to say hi, you got any questions, just jump on Facebook and shoot me a message. Normally it takes me 24 to 48 hours to respond, but I always reply to anyone in our community as well. So
awesome.
If you can get in contact, just jump on there.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast here with the Mojo Master himself, Michael Johnson. And I know this, Michael doesn't want to keep this a secret. I can't keep this a secret. The Mojo's got to get out there. So bring it on to iTunes. Make sure you rate the show so that we can get his message and all the other guests' messages out there. And of course, guys, head on over to richardfu.com to grab the show notes and resources that Michael shared here. And remember, guys, go out there, go live with love, and go smash it. And I'll see you again on the next one.